NBA 2K23 is like watching your favorite team clank a wide-open dunk to lose the game.
What could have been just didn't finish.
They've been playing well the whole time with on-court gameplay that's better than ever, plus various retro modes that are amazing for basketball history nerds.
It's showtime for Michael Jordan.
And including those, there's a litany of modes meant to hold your interest over for dozens, if not hundreds of hours. So where does it all go wrong?
How do you evaluate your performance?
Efficiency-wise, I've been struggling a little bit lately, so...
The NBA 2K franchise has put such an emphasis on pay-to-win microtransactions that its most popular game mode, the online MyCareer, feels horribly discouraging from the outset due to the disadvantage you'll face unless you're willing to throw down extra cash. So even while NBA 2K23 emulates the game of basketball so well both in its present form and the illustrious past of the NBA, it's just more difficult than ever to ignore the emphasis on sucking cash out of our wallets.
A terrible pick.
Now, it's hard to shake the feeling of being poor in NBA 2K23. For example, it took several hours of play to earn barely enough virtual currency to purchase a pair of Under Armour sweatpants. Yeah, not a terribly impressive reward, especially when you have to use that same virtual currency just to get your player's attributes up to a level that feels competitive for some on-court action. Now that's especially aggravating because half of the players encountered in The City are already off to a running start ahead of the default players' ratings, likely because they decided to shell out extra cash for an attribute buff. Now, for example, even a rebound-focused center will get out-jumped by a smaller player with much higher ratings, and that kind of thing is happening right and left right now. As you'd expect, the resulting scores are often weighted in favor of teams with high player attribute ratings, and that lack of balance makes it a lot harder to enjoy. Now, a lot of their advantage is probably perception, but it's hard to look past the idea that you're being cheated out of a win. Yes, with enough grinding, you could theoretically earn enough currency to level up enough to level the playing field, but that's a purposefully arduous process. Even playing through the mediocre MyCareer story mode won't net you a lot of VC. The remaining options, including daily login rewards and quests in the open world online city area, aren't exactly speedy or appealing either. It's a real drag.
Just the guy I wanted to see. Think you can help me out with something?
Now let's put all the microtransactions aside for a moment and appreciate that the city is dense and fun to explore, even though the skateboard is a pain to control. Seeing other players in an environment that's just dripping with basketball culture everywhere you look is a really amazing experience. Even shopping around can be a lot of fun. It's just aggravating that there's never enough VC available to both spend on stuff like this and level up your player. Fortunately, NBA 2K23 has plenty of other game modes to spend time in, including a couple of excellent new additions. First and foremost, the Jordan Challenge serves as an interactive timeline through Michael Jordan's historic basketball career, starting with his 1982 NCAA championship with the University of North Carolina and ending with his last championship-winning game against the Jazz in 1998.
Awareness by Michael Jordan came from the backside and took it right out of his hands.
There's an intense nostalgia that comes with being able to relive some of the greatest moments in NBA history.
I mean, you don't often get a chance to see this many big-name players on one court.
Now, in a similar vein, the MyNBA franchise mode now offers several eras to play in, including the Magic and Bird era, the Jordan era, the Kobe era, and of course, the modern era. Now, it's an absolute blast for NBA history buffs to be able to dive into the NBA's various golden ages, rewinding the clock to the early 2000s to run the court with a dominant Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal.
Back to Bryant, over Davis, and Bryant the bucket on the assist by O'Neal.
Now, on top of all of that, the graphics and retro filters meticulously encapsulate the atmosphere of these bygone eras. Of course, there are options to turn them off if you'd rather play with the standard gorgeous NBA 2K23 look and feel. Now on that topic, most of the changes to that look and feel were reserved for the era modes. Outside of those retro era makeovers, there isn't a lot of new, but that's forgivable given that the NBA 2K series already delivers the best graphics and commentary in sports gaming.
Takes flight. Oh, and down. You'll clear the deck. Deck cleared.
Now, of course, the retro modes are only this much fun to spend time with because the on-court gameplay is so good. And without a doubt, NBA 2K23 is as close as the series has ever gotten to emulating a real game of basketball. Now, this year, 2K appears to have invested less time in new big features and more into a large number of smaller gameplay tweaks, almost all of which are entirely welcomed. The most noticeable of them is the improved sense of weight to everything on the court, from player movement to the basketball itself. Players move and pivot much more realistically than before, and as a result, on-court spacing is finally in a good place. Some of the ball movement, including gorgeous kick-out passes from a driving LeBron to open shooters, was leagues better than anything we've previously seen.
Three-pointer. The shot's good on the assist by James.
Now, there's a better rhythm to it too, with transition play feeling more organic and off-ball movement creating better passing lanes. This all meshes very well with improved AI that is much more competent and able to adapt on the court. Now, there's still a little wonkiness that prevents it from truly mimicking the on-court NBA experience. For instance, the CPU really struggles with urgency late in the shot clock and often doesn't react realistically to getting outmaneuvered. Issues like this really stick out, especially when everything else feels so realistic. They may not feel groundbreaking, but there are a few gameplay features introduced in NBA 2K23, and one of them is pretty impactful. Each player now has 3 adrenaline boosts per possession, one of which is consumed every time you make a hard cut or dribble. Now, in practice, it's a limitation designed to put a stop to players flying around the court and abusing skill moves. Instead, it forces knowledge of team play and punishes anyone intent on trying to play hero ball with 1 star. Between boosts, the new shot ratings for signature jumpers, and a new defensive shading mechanic, online play is more fun this year than ever before.
Yes, and it's Irving picking up the assist.
Now, that's with one caveat. Connections can be hit or miss in terms of latency, so you may be in for some frustratingly laggy matches.
Oh, and the jam by Embiid.
But it's usually worth it because there's nothing quite like the challenge of another human player on the sticks. And just as its recent predecessor has been, NBA 2K23 is stuffed to the brim with different ways to enjoy its immersive and impressive gameplay. For instance, the WNBA has several modes to match the NBA, including a franchise mode with a ton of customizable options. It's an excellent change of pace, especially if you like growing and managing teams. So it's definitely possible to find a reprieve from the microtransaction focus modes and get a lot of enjoyment out of simply playing basketball without obnoxious and counterproductive progression systems. It'd just be better to not have to ignore half of the modes to do it.
Gobert with a screen on Brooks. Anderson passes to Gobert.
NBA 2K23 is heavily conflicted. On one hand, the new retro game modes have reached out to inner sports geeks and give us a way to replay NBA history in a way this series has never done before, especially paired with a handful of really strong gameplay changes like improved spacing and AI. It'd be easy to dump dozens of hours into reliving and reconstructing NBA history.
With no one getting in his way, he goes for the easy money.
Conversely, it creates a feeling of being completely and utterly isolated from the MyCareer experience. Unless you're interested in shelling out additional cash, even beyond the expensive Michael Jordan edition, or grinding for insane hours just to be able to compete on the online court, the deck will be stacked against you. And the density of the city and its shopping opportunities is diminished for the same reason. Instead, it seems wiser to take the metaphorical basketball and go home, where you can enjoy the parts of NBA 2K23 that aren't filled with repugnant microtransactions.
And that's what happens when you don't take care of the ball.
For more sports sims, check out our reviews of Madden NFL 23 and F1 22. And for everything else, stick with IGN.
The team first mindset on both sides.
Very unselfish, and we're going to see guys moving the ball. And Kevin, they play for one another. That's why these clubs rack up so many assists.
The pass to George. And here is Powell.